Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Damona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurospicy, ordained queerdo with a fascination for all things cycles, symbolism, and patterns.
And I'm Moon Kitty, your queer femme, poly kitchen witch, and proud geek. Today's episode is a bonus episode, and that is 2025 numerology. Hee hee! So,
Okay.
yes, this is the second time we've done this. So let's talk about what happens. We did 2024 last year. So for the year
Yes.
itself, and that was an 8 year. So now we're coming up into 2025, which I think a lot of us are a little bit dreading if you live in the United States. And what's going to happen in this upcoming 9 year?
Okay, so why are we calling it a 9 year?
Hmm.
Because you take 2 plus, well, 0 plus 2 plus 5. So 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 5 is 9. It is a 9 year. Now, I like to do numerology for the new year for people,
Hmm.
so I can talk to you about your personal year number. That's not what this is, but if anybody wants a numerology reading or some numerology for the new year, you can always contact me directly, and we will talk about how this is like in astrology. If we would look at your chart, we will talk about how the year change affects you directly because your number may not be a 9.
Hmm.
However, because globally we agree under this Gregorian calendar or whatever we're in, we call this year 2025 globally on a whole, as a society, as a global citizens, we are now being affected by the energy. We will then be affected by the energy of the 9 vibration because we call this year 2025. We put it on all the documents. It is a 9 year. So, what about the 9, right? The
Hmm.
9 is of the single digits, which when we're working in numerology, we like to reduce things down to their single digit,
Hmm.
just like how we're adding up the 2 and the 2 and the 5 and the 0 to
Hmm.
get the 9, we reduce it down. So 9 is the highest or last single digit number we can get.
Hmm.
So that alone kind of informs what the energy of the 9 brings.
Hmm.
Endings,
Right.
completion. For better or worse, this is the peak of the cycle.
Hmm.
We have to look at what we're letting go this year. We have to allow for release and let go. We have to get very comfortable with 9 can bring in death
Hmm.
into the mix. Just really looking at what you can let go of, because it's like you can't start the new cycle if you're holding on to the old one. You have to clean the fridge out before you make a big meal.
Hmm.
You have to make room for what's fresh, what's new, and you can't just keep piling up new stuff or new cycles if you're not flushing out
Right.
everything that's come before it. So the 9 is the big flush, the big
Hmm.
release, the letting go. And the other thing I want to say about the number 9 is it is a humanitarian number. It is
Hmm.
a global spirituality number. It is this spirit of soul connection is what keeps us in our humanity.
Hmm.
And I think we're going to have to lean heavily into that theme as well, as this year brings a lot of changes,
Hmm.
transformation, transmutation. We seek permanence in a world that is built in
Hmm.
permanence. So it's hard for some people. Letting go is can be really hard for people,
Hmm.
but you need to realize that we're on the precipice of transformation. There will be new things happening. There will be new cycles beginning in 2026 when we
Hmm.
get to a 1 year again.
Hmm.
So I think that we need to start looking at what needs to change.
Hmm.
What's better for the global majority, truly on a humanitarian level. There's going to be a lot of talk around this, a lot of, action hopefully being taken around these themes.
Right. And it's
What
really
comes
an interesting
Okay.
year in the thought that this cycle is what, from 2014 to 2025 is that 9 year cycle of things. So what are we seeing? What have we seen politically happen over that time frame? What has adjusted? How has life on Earth changed? We went from we went into this pandemic, we went into this global change for how things are going on a global level, as well as how we're coming out of it now. I think a lot of us are worried,
Yeah.
especially those of us who are queer, because this is an ending cycle. So, what this next year will bring will set the stage for what happens next. And
Yeah.
being the eternal optimist I am, as again, this is coming out January 1st. We all know in the United States that in 20 days, we're going to have a president again who
A
is,
regime change.
yeah, who is not, does not always have the best interests of the people in their mind. They have fact out said that we're going to do what's best for women, even if women don't care about it, despite what they may want. And I mean, that's just one thing.
And then,
They
of
we
course,
already
their
know
ideas of what's best is not
exactly what's best is not
anywhere
necessarily
close to what's
actually
best.
best for anyone. What in the nature of what's happening for anyone in the queer marginalized communities, our trans brothers and sisters are terrified. Anyone on the trans spectrum is terrified.
Yeah.
Anyone on the queer spectrum is terrified. A lot of our allies and friends who are leftward leaning politically or socialist leaning politically are terrified of what's going to happen. My hope, my goal, and the glimmer of light that I hold on to desperately is we will hit the year of the FAFO. The pardon my language, but fuck around and find out. I am hoping that this year, for those that we have seen who have embraced this kind of madness cycle and these words of the charlatan, are going to have the wool stripped from their eyes and see the charlatan for what he is, and that mask, and that will start us on this next year 2026 cycle of actually
Making
finding performative
changes.
change.
Yeah. Well, then that's something to be said is in the last 9 year cycle, we've had two different presidencies, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like feel like we're going backwards because we're
Mm-hmm.
going back to the one that started off this 9 year cycle, because I think 9 years ago would be 2016.
Is it 2000? I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. It is 2016.
Yeah,
It's not 2014. My apologies.
which was the last time,
Yeah.
our political climate was this saucy. And so it feels like on one hand that we're going backwards, but then starting this inauguration off in a 9 year tells me this could be the death rattle.
Mm-hmm.
This could be the final throes of the old ideas and this could be part of out with the old, in with the new.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we need to be looking at as magic workers, as practitioners of queer magic, we need to be looking at, fleshing out the old that we really do feel is
Mm-hmm.
socially antiquated and making room for new programs, new solidarity, new resilience, new found ways to swing the pendulum in the other
Mm-hmm.
direction, new ways to come together and demand humanitarian rights
Mm-hmm.
for all citizens of the planet,
Yes.
regardless of borders,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of political affiliation.
Regardless
We
of
have
skin
to,
tone or religion or whatever it may be, orientation.
so I honestly think it actually bodes well that we're going through these changes in a 9 year,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's going to fuel a lot of change and it may start our next cycle off with an upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like that right now, but it might
Mm-mm.
just, because, we talk about trauma responses of fight, flight, fawn, and we're all individually going to go through these
Mm-hmm.
cycles. But I think ultimately we're going to settle into fighting it,
Mm-hmm.
fighting for our rights, fighting for global population, the health of, the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it does feel like we're going backwards, but sometimes it could be like a slingshot. We're being pulled backwards so that we can leap forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that we can really evaluate what's being let go of, what we can let go of, what we can
Mm-hmm.
release, what needs to die out. Let the dinosaurs go.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what can happen? Who knows who's going to be inspired? Think about the generations that are coming into adulthood now
Mm-hmm.
and how they will be inspired to action in the next 4 years, in the beginning of the next cycle.
Mm-hmm. So a
It does,
lot.
it can seem bleak,
Mm-hmm.
but there's always going to be a message of hope behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And that you have to allow for things to die off.
Mm-hmm.
We have to allow for death and rebirths. It is
Mm-hmm.
not just a life and death thing, it's a little mini deaths. It's a little mini, spring cleaning, but the spring cleaning of a big chunk of years.
Mm-hmm.
Out with the old.
Out with the old. So
Because,
expect a lot of chaotic, kind of tumultuous events happening this year as we let go, as we release
mm-hmm,
it.
yep, getting very comfortable with the idea of impermanence, that nothing is guaranteed, but that when you tear down a wall, you make room to build a garden.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also that. Don't forget, the cycle will start over again, and
Yes.
we're making room for new beginnings. I don't think it's necessarily the time to solidify those new beginnings yet
Mm-mm.
because we haven't done the work to let go of the old cycle, and that's what we're going to be doing this year. So don't give up hope, and just make sure you're doing your spring cleaning all year long.
Mm-hmm. And listen. Listen, be an activist for change. Be a motivator.
Yeah.
Support your friends, support your family, support your neighbors.
Yeah.
That's how
But
we'll
remember,
get through
we're
this.
all human. We're all doing this human life thing together. Nine is a very humanitarian number. It's very concerned about global events. It's very concerned about us as a species
Mm-hmm.
surviving and not destroying our home.
Right.
So these are all things that we need to be thinking about and asking ourselves, how do we get involved? Also, just allowing for the release of the old cycles, knowing that we can't do things the way we've always done them because it
Nope.
doesn't result in the progress that we want to make. And progress will still be made,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes we do have to go backwards a little bit
Mm-hmm.
before we can launch forward.
Fantastic.
That's my message for our 9 year.
Yes. So take that to heart
Yeah,
and we'll see
hold it,
you.
hang in there,
Exactly. You'll see more and hear more from us all year long.
Yes,
So
and so
we'll be
tell us
here.
what you're letting go of this year. What are you
Yes.
going to let go of? What are you ready to let go of? What old patterns are ready to die away so that you can move forward? This is important, important
Yes.
work. Thank you to our listeners for listening to us for a second New Year's, and
Mm-hmm.
we deeply appreciate you. And if you like what you hear, make sure you give us those thumbs up and subscribe and save and give us some 5-star reviews. Leave us some comments. Tell us what you're doing this year to let go.
Mm-hmm. And if there's a topic you want to know more about or an episode topic you'd like to suggest, contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle @queerwitchproject. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself and love rebelliously.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye!
Happy New Year.